Hello, I'm Rob Doherty and this is the FSTVS podcast, Executive Edition, supported by Liberi Consulting and hosted by Julian Scott, animation consultant for Film London. In this series we'll be chatting to the big hitters in the animation industry and discovering a little bit more about what they do, how they got there, their thoughts on the animation industry, and, I hope, get to meet the person behind that executive title. Julian's guest today is Alix Wiseman, and this wonderfully wide-ranging chat covers Alix's career from Channel 4 through Aardman Animations to her current role as 9 Story Media Group's Senior Vice President of Distribution and Acquisitions. They'll discuss how Alix got into the animation game in the first place, how she and her team source new projects, how rapidly the distribution landscape is changing, and maybe offer up some tips on how to make the best of your own show ideas. I hope you enjoy.
Alix, welcome to the FSTVS podcast. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Good morning, and how are you
I'm good.
Today?
I'm good, thank you very much. Did you bring coffee? That's a big question.
Yep, had my coffee, and soon I will have my second.
I was going to ask you, you've got such a wide brief, and we'll come on to that in a little bit, but is coffee a big part of your day?
I just think coffee is one of the great delights in life. And I feel a little tinge of sadness when I meet people who, for perfectly good reasons, say they don't drink coffee. And I just feel they're really missing out. So I love my coffee. It starts out the day. I mean, it's just the best way to start, actually. So it's a delightful thing.
I'm in complete agreement. I'm on my third, I think. So your career started in sales at Channel 4. And whilst you were there, you looked after factual entertainment, comedy, drama, features, as well as animation. But you then focused on animation. What was it about the genre that gave you the desire to leave the rest behind and just focus in on animation?
Well, it really was amazing, actually, to work across so many different genres of programming. And it was exactly that led me to animation, because much though I enjoyed selling all those other genres, what I noticed was that first of all, I loved animation. I loved it so much that I bought myself a Super 8 camera.
Wow.
And I made my own stop frame animation. And at the end of that, which I filmed in my sister's flat in Brixton over many, many months, and at the end of making my little short film, I realized I must never, not ever be an animator. But I did realize that I absolutely loved the medium. And of course, at that time, we had Channel 4 was investing quite a lot of money in animation, and Claire Kitson, who was the commissioning editor for animation, who I'm sure you've met and who was brilliant, is an amazing person, was commissioning a lot of the shorts from Aardman, stop frame animated shorts, and then also, of course, Channel 4 had the Snowman, so I got to spend quite a lot of time with John Coates and co, and that's when I fell in love with animation and decided I wanted to go and specialize in kids content and specifically animation at the time. It was going to be that or maybe format rights. I was quite interested in format rights. We were doing The Big Breakfast and Don't Forget Your Toothbrush at Channel 4, and format rights were a really big thing at that time. But I realized that the world of children's content was so immersive and so deep, and there was so much to mine there that's what I wanted to specialize in.
And I have to ask you, is that animation available to see anywhere? Is it on YouTube, your homemade animation?
Oh, no, absolutely not. God, no, for my eyes only.
Well, so there's no form of bribery that would ever get it out into the open air?
Absolutely not. Not even if you ask my husband, and he's an animator, and he's the only one that's gotten to see it.
That's right. What was his critique? You don't have to tell me, it's fine.
I think he agreed maybe best not to pursue a career in animation.
It's always good to have a supportive partner in life, isn't
it? Exactly.
So nowadays, at 9 Story, your role encompasses sales, sourcing third-party content, taking new IP that you've developed to market with the creative team and getting them financed and greenlit. As I said before, that's a very, very wide brief. In a nutshell, what does that entail, and what does an average day in Alix Wiseman's life look like?
Well, first of all, there's the coffee, of course. I mean, like anyone who's kind of desk-based, lots and lots and lots of emails. I would spend as much of a day taking pictures and reading materials, scripts, Bibles, treatments, as I would probably doing pitches and pitching potential partners. There's obviously quite a lot of negotiation involved with deals of different levels of complexity, possibly co-productions that, partnership deals, which can take quite a long time and involve a lot of discussion, reviewing materials, reviewing animatics, doing notes on scripts can be part of some of the co-production deals I might work on, which I may be executive producing, for instance, working with my amazing sales team on shows that they're representing and taking out to market. We might be putting together forecasts or financing plans for various different intellectual properties, a lot of internal meetings with our franchise and consumer product and digital departments, a lot of trying to support our commissioners and buyers who have come on board for certain of our IPs, and how can we help and enhance and provide support to them. There's quite a lot. And then I travel a good deal, so I probably would be on a plane every 3 weeks or so. All the usual places, conferences, markets, and sales trips and things like that.
Wow. I mean, it sounds like even though you're clearly, sort of high up the tree, for want of a better phrase, at 9 Story, you're still very active in looking and reviewing scripts. You don't rely so much on readers and things like that. You're very, very hands-on, eyes on every property that comes through the door.
No, I absolutely don't read the scripts for every property that comes in the door. For anything that's submitted to us for review, pitches that we take for potential partnerships or co-production, for instance, or acquisition, for third-party acquisitions, those scripts I will read. For shows that I work on closely with our creative affairs or development teams, I will tend to sort of look at certainly any scripts for the animatics or the early scripts on the shows that I'm close to. But no, I'm definitely not across every script by any stretch. That's our development teams and our, we have amazing teams here who work in the creative affairs side of business. They do all that. So I'm just more of the very beginning stages when we're shaping something to take it to market, and trying to get the tone right.
And how do you balance out, obviously, your incredible knowledge of the market and how the market's shifting and what commissioners want versus, I suppose, sort of personal taste? And because you spoke earlier on about the immersive world of children's media and how passionate you are about that. Is it difficult to balance out, what you might feel personally about a project versus what you think the market is looking for?
I mean, the way we work at 9 Story is that all of us sort of stakeholders, for lack of a better term, will tend to weigh in on anything that we decide to take to market. And so it's a very sort of holistic approach. There isn't sort of one decision being made in a silo because it's a passion project for somebody. It really, we take IPs to market that we collectively believe in, that we have collectively decided to push forward. And by all sort of weighing in to a certain extent at different points, we ensure that what we're taking to market is actually something that is going to be commercially viable, that is going to work on a global level, that has got the touch points that we're looking for in the kind of shows that we make. So we do tend to have a very kind of deep process, actually, for any IP that we develop and take to market. Which means that we're all kind of facing in the same direction together.
That sounds.
If that answers.
No, it does completely. It's as a producer myself, I look at stuff comes across my desk, and I have to feel sort of, I'm a team of one, so it's a fairly easy decision to make. But I've got to feel that it's something I'm personally passionate about, that I think it's going to work for the market. But it sounds like you've got a whole group of people all feeding into the same thing and heading in the same direction, which
very much so.
Sounds like a great asset. I mean, I was just talking about markets and changing markets and things like that. And I think the animation sector has probably been one of the genres in sort of on-screen entertainment that's been quick to adapt to a changing market and audience need. The vast majority of animation's audience are younger people, but creating animation, crafting animation from sort of concept to being able to pitch it properly takes quite a while, and we're probably facing some of the most sort of seismic changes in several years right now that the sector's faced, with artificial intelligence, the TV audience fragmenting, drifting off to YouTube or Roblox. With that in mind, what do you think the routes to market for an animated project are these days?
Well, you're right. It is a kind of perfect storm of many things that have happened now in the business, and as many people have said, this is kind of unprecedented. I don't think in my career I've ever seen anything quite like this before, and so. I think those of us in this business have learnt to be quite wily and reinvent ourselves and to, pivot quite a lot, to take that, to borrow an American term. But this one is a bit different because I think we have to sort of reimagine things to quite an extent. I think that many of us independent studios have relied quite extensively on American dollars to get our shows off the ground. And, a lot of that business is kind of on ice at the moment. So we have to turn back to Europe, which is kind of where a lot of us started, certainly where I started back in the day, patching together, many different deals to make a show financeable and throwing in some tax credits with that. So I think one's got to really try to look at what the demands are, what the needs are for the public broadcasters, commercial linear broadcasters on this side of the pond, find out really what's important to them, what not to. If you look on the BBC Children's Commissioning website, it will tell you very clearly what they're not looking for. But it will also give you a good indication of what they are looking for. And so if you can be producing something which is also has the passion and the love behind it, as you said, but which will work for these markets, so that might also well be European content, European quota content. That is quite an increasingly important feature. Looking at budgets is important for a lot of these players, and then try and piece together financing with all the great partners that we have available to us on this side of the pond, but making sure it is actually the kind of content they're looking for. That's sort of how we would be approaching it. It doesn't mean we're not looking to do business in the US. We are very happy to do that, and we're meeting with all our partners regularly, but we also need to be able to try and finance shows in different ways. So we're trying every business model that's available to us, like everybody else, really.
And do you personally find piecing things together as a bit of a jigsaw more exciting than being able to go, as people could maybe a year, 18 months ago, go to a major network, a streamer, and they say, "Oh, Alix, we love your project. We'll pay for it. Here's a bit of an uplift for your peace of mind." And it's just one deal, however complicated and detailed that one deal is. Presumably you find it more exciting to go and meet all these people and piecing it all together?
Yeah, I mean, the former, which is the sort of full original commission model, is a kind of a gorgeous, lovely kind of deal to make as well. And I look forward to the day that they come back. But, I do find it incredibly rewarding. It takes a lot longer. It's harder. There's no question about it, doing what we would call the international coalition model. And we call it a coalition because actually, the beautiful part of that is those are true partnerships. So you may have kind of 3 or 4 key pre-sale partners, and all of them will be doing notes, and all of them will be helping to shape a show. And so it can be a very lovely experience, bringing together all these expertise. I mean, working with a lot of the commissioning editors and execs at these different channels on your own project mostly completely elevates the work. And so it's like you're adding on a whole number of experts, and that can make for a very beautiful piece of content. So it's definitely rewarding. It's lovely for the relationships. one has had these relationships going back a long way. There's a shorthand, there's a trust, and there's something lovely about working with people who you really like and admire. So yeah, I think I really do enjoy it. It's the long slog of it sometimes, just because it all takes a little bit longer. But I find it very enjoyable. Yeah,
brilliant.
Definitely.
But and presumably, if you've got 3 or 4 partners all working on the same project, there must be times when there's a little bit of disagreement or people seeing things from a slightly different perspective, and you possibly have to take on a role a little bit like the head of the UN to try and keep everybody happy and quiet. How do you manage that?
I think that's actually part of what I enjoy, because we are all humans. We do have different perspectives, and we do have different ways of resolving things. And I think that, if there is a trust there, and that's the most important thing, there's trust and transparency, you can kind of discuss anything. You can really come to a resolution together collectively. Without the trust and without the transparency, that's when you run into problems. So if you're working in a partnership which is completely brand new, and you have no experience of how that partner may work or what makes them tick, that can be a lot tougher, which is why, as a starting point, if you're lucky enough to be able to work with people who you have that trust and that transparency with, I think you can kind of discuss anything, and then you just find compromises. But I think it's a fun part of the job as well, because it's all about speaking to people's humanity, and also being human and humble yourself, and trying to listen to understand and not just to respond, which is very hard for all of us, and certainly hard for me just as much as anyone else. But it makes the whole thing, that's part of the rewarding aspect of it, because if it were all so easy, it wouldn't be as rewarding as it is when you come to the end of the project and it's kind of beautiful and you're all very proud of it. You have to go through these ups and downs with it. Like any relationship.
I was just going to say, like any relationship, and like any relationship, it's it's very people based, isn't it? And presumably these are relationships with the commissioners and partners that you've built up over a number of years through various stages of your career. And as people move around from network to network, or indeed executives move from studio to studio, I've always felt that animation's a big global international business, but actually it's still quite small. The same key players are around, and you build that relationship with people over a number of years, and that, I suppose, allows you to have that transparency and honesty with people, because you're all working towards the same kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It is quite a small business, and a very lovely, warm business. I mean, I really remember making the change when I was at Channel 4. We sold a lot of documentaries, a lot of factual programming. And I just remember the difference between kind of selling, 12-part series about really, really heavy war crimes, for instance, or else selling quite tedious 20-episode series about Persian rugs, for instance. And then meeting with lots of very, very serious buyers in the documentary world, many of whom were academics and who were extremely kind of diligent and serious about these subjects, and, pitching them quite heavy duty stuff. And then talking to the animation buyers, and it'd be like, this is a lovely story about a little boy called Jack and his best friend is a dog, and it just kind of like it was just like a weight lifting off in a way, and I think the whole business, the businesses like that, we have all known each other for a really long time, and I love all the newcomers coming in as well. We need new blood. I feel there isn't enough of it, actually. We need more new, young blood in this business. But it's a lovely, supportive place full of people with a lot of talent and a lot of interest in what they're making, and funny bones I love it. I love this business.
I have to say I do too, to be honest with you. And you mentioned earlier on about the sort of the touch points within Nine Story that are important to you when considering IP. If I was developing something new right now, what should I be considering about in that in my development in order for it to resonate with you guys?
I mean, there is no one fixed thing for us. We're interested in taking pitches for anything across the board and all genres. I think we do develop quite a lot of preschool animation, and we're known for quite a lot of preschool animation. So the greatest challenge for us when it comes to taking pitches for any preschool show is that it might conflict with something that we're already making or in production on, or that we have in our catalog. And that's not fair on the producer, or it's not good for anyone. We don't want to cannibalize that. So we have to always look at that we have to look at it through that lens. But that said, we're always looking for unicorns. we want the next Bluey, the next Hey Dougie.
Can I make notes? That'd be quite handy if I could make some notes right now.
And by which I mean, I don't actually mean we're looking for unicorns. I mean, we're looking for unicorns.
Okay, so I'll cross that out then. Fine.
But we don't want to miss out on the next Bluey, and we don't want to miss out on a beautiful, left field, gorgeous show. So we'll take pitches at any stage that they're at. I think I really find it helpful when, if we're being pitched a show about princesses, that the people who've created it, produced it, have kind of done their research and understood quite how populated that genre is and why this would stand out amongst all the other princess shows. So just a knowledge of, of what's out there, and maybe, for instance, what commissioners are looking for, having sort of understood that a little bit. And I think it's helpful to watch quite a lot of children's television as well. Is probably you really can see that in people when they're pitching you shows, if they actually are really plugged into this whole to children's content offerings.
Sure, and
I think that helps.
No, absolutely. And I remember talking to a writer a number of years ago, and he said the best thing any writer can really do to enhance their career and develop is read. And it's exactly the same kind of thing, isn't it? If you know what's out there, if you can see what's working, you can see what's popular. Don't try and replicate it, but try and think about that as you're developing new ideas. And how, as a smaller producer, how does a smaller producer get noticed by Nine Story? I mean, when you're up against, and I speak from personal experience because I arranged a meeting with you on the day that your deal with Crayola Studios was announced, and I was just walking down the Croisette thinking, well, should I just go for a glass of wine now because you're not going to have particular interest for my project? So how do you balance? Crayola is a big deal, and then there's smaller people coming along with those unicorn ideas. How do you balance all that out?
Well, we have room for everything. We don't have one size fits all. The Crayola deal is one that we're really proud and excited about, and that's a 5IP partnership deal that we have with them, and that's its own thing, if you like, where we are aligning our mission and our objectives with Crayola Studios' mission as well, and so that's a kind of a really lovely area of work that one of the partnerships we're very proud of, but it isn't prohibitive in terms of not being able to work with other partners. We're absolutely open to all studios, big and small, independent creators, sole traders, because a good idea can come from absolutely anywhere, and many good ideas have come from the brilliant brain of one person, and that's enough for us. So it doesn't have to be, we don't need someone to come to us with fully developed ideas and animatic and all the expensive things and the full script. Any starting point is fine. So we're at all these markets. We're at Cartoon Forum. We'll be at CMC doing the International Exchange all day long, where we do take pitches like that from independent creators. We receive pitches and materials from small studios every single day, I'd say, actually. So there is absolutely nothing, there's nothing and nobody that we would cut out from that process, because to do so would be a mistake. And we could miss out on something completely brilliant. And it doesn't put us off either. So if there's, a soul creator who's come up with a brilliant idea, and we want to partner with them, we'll populate them, we'll help them and bring the people that they need around them in order to sort of build on their incredible idea, and to have them continue sort of leading the creative light on that. So yeah, we're really open to all that, and we do have lots of partnerships and lots of shows that we represent, which started out that way, I'd say.
This podcast is made possible thanks to the support of the awesome Liberi Consulting. Liberi offers specially tailored industry-related training courses. Check them out at libericonsulting.com. That's LIBERI consulting.com. You can also find links to their fantastic courses on the Festivus website.
When Alix Wiseman goes and has meetings with people all around the world, what's your, I'm sure you don't want to give away any trade secrets, but what's your sort of general approach to pitching an idea?
Mm-hmm. Well, so I tend to do very little of the pitching myself these days. So in certain situations, if I haven't got the creative team around me, then I will do the pitches myself. But we really favor working with the creators, be they the writers, be they the original creator, showrunner, the head writer, and have them pitch it. Because if it's come from them originally in their heart, that's always going to be eminently preferable in a pitch situation. So we work with them to create the pitch deck and to make sure that the essence of what they're trying to talk about is in there. And then we actually rehearse. We rehearse extensively. Because many of the pitches, if they are on Zoom, for instance, that's a half-hour slot. And I'm a big believer that a verbal pitch should probably not go on much longer than 7 or 8 minutes, because it's a lot to focus. It's a lot to concentrate. You're asking the buyers to understand all your characters, their relationships, what they're like, the universe they're in, and a couple storylines. That's actually quite a lot, and it's sometimes too much. And so I think it's got to be visually very, very strong, ideally with almost no text at all. We tend to not use any text at all, really. And then so that the people we're pitching have the ability to look at the images and listen to the story, listen to what they're being told, and to keep it short. And also to try and tell them that we're going to keep it short, because you see a kind of a palpable bit of a relief on their face when you say, this is going to be only 7 minutes. Like, it is hard, I think, for people taking pitches. I think a really important thing to do is to say, we've got a new preschool show or a new 8 to 12 show we'd like to pitch to you. Would you like to hear the pitch? In the first place, because sometimes, buyers and commissioners don't have the opportunity to say, no, actually, we are absolutely not taking pitches for that genre or, related to princesses or anything like that. But you've already gone right into a pitch and you didn't ask them first. Would you like to hear this? I think that's important, because these poor people spend their lives taking pitches. Sure. And, so it's better to kind of just try and sense check that beforehand, I think, if possible. But yes, we try and really, really make it as tight and as well rehearsed as possible. And we tend to shorten all the time, so that we're really just going to the nub of it and not laying on too much information, which is impossible for the brain to absorb in such a short period of time.
Wow. It sounds sort of almost like soft selling, doesn't it? It's, sorry, you're going to say something.
No. I haven't heard of it said like that. What do you mean by that?
Well, soft selling is, I suppose, it's when you manage to sell something by not actually selling it. And it's exactly, because right. I think sometimes if you go into situations and you're too pushy, you try and do too much of a hard sell, it can get they can make them defensive. And I think if you, as you've just said, if you approach it by saying, can we pitch? Would you like to hear about this? You're giving that the pitch, the pitchy, the opportunity to say, actually, do you know what? Not right now, but thank you very much. So you've already sort of disarmed them a little bit, and they've said, oh yeah, come on, tell me about it. I'd like to hear more. And then by making it short and not giving too much of a hard sell, you're allowing them again to sort of just make up their own mind, not I suppose, feel that they're being pushed into a decision. I suppose it's a bit like selling a car, and selling a car would be a hard sell, and that's obviously not what you do.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I'd never really thought about it that way. And I think I prefer to work that way because, first of all, I believe that the buyers and commissioners, they really know what they want. They know what they want, and they also know what they like. And there's nothing I can do to change that. And so quite honestly, either they will like it or love it and want to get involved, or they won't. But I can't make them buy something that they don't want. And I know that from the get-go. So all I can do is put my best foot forward and say, here is something that we believe in and we think is amazing. I hope you do too, but you may not. Because also when they tend to say they're not interested in something, then for me, that's like, okay, well, we're done with that then. And it may be that a year later, we're having a conversation and they say, oh, we kind of want something to do with princesses. And I'll say, oh, do you remember that princess show that we pitched you a year ago? Would you like to hear about it again? And they might say, oh, you know what? Yes, we'll take another look at it. But I do feel that one can't force them into thinking and feeling the way we want them to feel. And so that's kind of my starting point, I suppose.
No, and it sounds very, very smart. And as a result, I mean, you've had an incredibly successful career. You've got an international Emmy to your name. You've worked with some of the best animation studios. You mentioned Aardman earlier. And you've worked with some of the best stars of the small screen, like Shaun the Sheep and Postman Pat. When you started out, did you have a career plan, a strategy?
Yes, I was going to go into publishing.
And how did that go?
Not very well, because I was living in London at the time, and I wanted to go into publishing, and I was actually quite interested in representing authors for children's books. Was a sort of random idea I had at the time, not knowing that you could actually represent rights for children's television programs. And I wanted to get into it, but quite honestly, at that time in London, I was offered a couple of jobs, but it turned out you had to have a trust fund in order to work in publishing.
Wow.
Because they paid so little. That you couldn't support yourself. It was completely out of the question. I mean, I remember being offered a job for £5,000 or £6,000 a year or something. And I realized that many of the people that were working in publishing at the time were very sort of well-spoken, well-to-do people that had trust funds. And so they could actually go into that. So anyway, I quickly realized I had to get a proper job. And I really only happened upon selling television rights and getting into distribution. I actually did not know that it existed, but as soon as I went into it, because it was a different form of representation of rights, I completely fell in love with it. So quite honestly, it was accidental at the beginning, but I have been in it now for quite a long time, and just love it. And it only gets deeper and more interesting. And, these challenges like what we're facing right now, actually, they enable you to try and be creative and try and think of things in different ways and try to use the tools at your disposal. We have amazing, we have 2 CG pipelines here. We have our studio here in Dublin. We have a CG studio in Bali in Indonesia. We have our wonderful 2D studio in Toronto. We're very fortunate. We have a digital division. We have franchise consumer products. We have fantastic technical, financial, legal teams and resources. So we're able to be pretty nimble here. We can be reactive. It's a big company, but we are able to be reactive, and we're able to go, okay, this is changing. Let's change how we do things. And that's kind of one of the great pleasures of working at 9 Story, actually, is that, we watch the market and react to it all the time, it's how everybody likes to work here. That's kind of the general approach here. There aren't barriers to entry on new ideas, on new business models, on new ways of thinking, on new ways of partnering. Really, it's an open book. We can look at it from every angle.
That's fantastic. Just as we're finishing up, because I'm sure you probably want another coffee shortly.
You're right.
What's the best piece of business advice you've ever been given?
Well, I guess that would take me back again to my old friend John Coates, who sadly is no longer with us, who produced The Snowman. He said, I may not get this exactly right, but only work with people you like, I think, or it may have been love. I would change that to like, because you can't love everyone, but it's really helpful if you like everyone. I think especially when it comes to, the culture and the kind of company you work in, it makes a massive difference if you like the people you work with. It makes you happy. It makes you enjoy your job. It makes you do your best. And in terms of partnership, if you're working with people you like, which is everything from maybe a co-production partnership to the people that you're selling to, it makes it all enjoyable, and it makes it all a lovely, good, edifying, rewarding human experience. So I think John Coates kept it simple, but it's pretty on the nose.
Yeah, I completely agree with you and John. And looking back to the start of your career, what advice would you have given yourself? Any advice, knowing what you know now back then, if that makes sense?
I think I would have said that it's okay to speak your mind, or rather that your opinions are valid, just as valid as anyone else's. When you're starting out, you don't really have much of an opportunity. You don't have that much of a voice at the table. It takes quite a long time for you to have a voice at the table. I feel like I struggled with that a little bit, because there were many times over the course of my career where I would sit at the table and hear other voices giving their opinions, and I would feel very, very strongly that perhaps that wasn't the right direction, but I didn't have the confidence, the gumption, or the agency, mm-hmm. or the permission almost to give my opinion. And in hindsight, I feel like actually I still would stand by some of those opinions, but I didn't have the ability to. And one of the things that I really admire about younger generations is that they're encouraged a lot more to be vocal and to say what they think about things than maybe my generation was. So that's one thing I would have said to my younger self, is go ahead, say the things that you feel. It's all right. All you can do is be wrong, but do say them.
Yeah, interesting. And somebody starting out in looking at a career in animation now, and maybe in their sister's flat in South London, and thinking about making their own animated short, would you still encourage somebody to get involved in animation and look at it as a career?
Definitely. Absolutely. It's a wonderful, brilliant career. And children are always, always, always going to need animated content. It's and when you think about, I remember a long time ago seeing some research about what happens in war zones. Adults' behavior, they stop buying, many products, luxury goods, and everything like that tends to go. Everything goes. The last things that they will spend money on, it's all to do with children. Usually, it's products, it's toys for their kids, and also the ability for them to be able to watch great content, because it takes them away from the madness around them. It is the tradition of animation and children's programming has been a long one. It's not going anywhere. We're always going to need animation. So I would encourage anyone to embrace it and dive into it. But I really do think that a big part of the work is to watch a lot of children's television. It's a bit of a missing link sometimes. You have to see what's out there. What's the competitive set? Why is Bluey so good? What is the magic of SpongeBob? Why does Transformers work so well? try to understand, try to see who's making these great shows. What is it about them? Because all of that is going to be incredibly formative. You can't just develop something in a silo as a pure passion project without understanding the world around you. So I think you have to do a lot of studying and a lot of watching and a lot of thinking about what is out there already, to try and it will just help you a lot with your work going forward. But yes, get in there, get stuck in, and that need is never going to go anywhere. And we need new blood. Like I said, we need people to get involved and get stuck in, and we especially also need more women to get into animation, not just animation, but also compositing and lighting and rendering and modeling. And, we really want to see that representation go up as well.
Alix, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate you giving up this time to talk to me today and being, genuinely candid and honest about yourself, your work, your perspective on the industry. So what's next? What when you get off this podcast, what are you doing next?
A few calls, a few meetings, the coffee. And I've got a meeting with my lovely team, and we're planning our Annecy meetings as well. We're going to Annecy soon. Brian Nolan on my team is going to be heading out to the Middle East soon. So lots of different bits and bobs cooking, and all of it good. And the best thing about it is that I really look forward to today. And that is one of the nicest things you can say about any job and any work life, I think, is that you wake up looking forward to it and you enjoy where you work. So that's my parting comment, and it's very true.
Well, long may it continue.
That was a lot of fun and very insightful. A big thank you to Alix for taking the time to talk to us. We'll catch you next time for more chats with industry stars like Alix. As always, a massive thanks to Julie and Scott for hosting. Information about Film London can be found at filmlondon.org/animation. Well worth a visit. And once again, a huge thank you to Liberi Consulting for all their support in making this podcast series a reality. Check out their industry-related training courses on the Festivus website now. Thanks everyone, and come back soon for more episodes.